Okay.
Hey everybody, Chris Lipper on the bus, small business owner coaching, and we are about to listen to Mike Doyle's story in our big book featuring the 12 steps of entrepreneurship. And this should be great. Mike's an old friend and has great energy, you'll get that from hearing his story. So let's get into that right now. And I gotta share sound, click that button. Here we go.
Mike Doyle, animator in chief at Drive 80. I've been pretty much a solo person. I don't want to work for anybody except myself. When I was younger, I had my first business partnership when I was in a band. We graduated high school, we didn't want to go to college, let's just get a van and tour. So we did that for 2.5 years. That was my first taste of a business partnership without actually knowing it. We didn't have the fundamentals at 19, such as all four of us having the same goal. It's the same as business. Do we have four different opinions here? How do we organize this and go in the same direction because we want to keep playing music? When that fell apart, it was the beginning of a lesson. Now I never work with partners. That ended, and I just fought this whole thing. I want to figure something out where one day I'm working for myself. That led to moving to California from New Jersey. Then I found graphic design, but I realized I had to put myself through school, so I came back and followed my gut, basically. When I'm asking for things, kind of putting it out there in the universe, it's like, I really want to do this. I don't know how to do this. I need some help. Now in life, I know how to ask for this and say, okay, I really need this, and it shows up. But back then, I was just kind of winging it. So I came back to New Jersey, went to school, and paid for my own 10-month course. I started working at a job sort of freelancing, and I hated it. Within that time, I started different business partnerships, and they failed. I didn't really know what business was, but I just thought, I'm doing this, and it's cool. It's gonna work in my favor. People are just going to show up and buy my stuff because it's cool. That starts a whole journey. I met Chris in 2011. At that point, I'd been freelancing for about 5 or 6 years for myself. It was just, I'll put cool stuff out there, people will find me, and then I'll be successful. I'll make money. Fast forward, I started an LLC, Drive 80 Studios, which has now been around for 11 years. I built it based on, well, all those things I do. I didn't want to give it a real name, like I didn't want it to be video production in New Jersey.com or something. I wanted to be very broad because I was going to change my mind. I left the freelancing job, which I had for 4 years, making a ton of money, because they just cut freelance. So I was on my own. I was doing a lot of different things. So my week would be creating a banner ad, making a print ad, making a website, doing video production, and doing photography. I was using all of the skills that I had and thinking this will all make sense. Chris suggested that I read a book called Built to Sell. After the partnership ended, I decided to sell everything and travel. I took books, signed them, and gave them to friends, telling them hopefully this helps you on your journey. That book said to do one thing really well is it makes your life a lot easier. Then I'm saying to the universe, I need ideas and help again. This might sound super woo-woo, but it's weird. When you really do that and you're asking for it and you keep your eyes open, it shows up. I ask this a lot. I really need help. At the time I was married and the person I was married to was starting in CrossFit. This other guy who was starting in CrossFit had this friend named Chris Lipper. Chris Lipper shows up to an event. He's all tie-dyed out and has this Grateful Dead look, and I walk up to him. He's super nice, just a super chill guy and laid back. I'm confused. Who's this hippie who's going to give you business advice? I was like, hey man, I hear you do these mastermind groups. I found out that's what Rockefeller and Carnegie used to do. I want to be that rich, so how do I do this? He's like, okay, well, I'm just going to come down and we'll talk. Then I roll in and we sit in his room and he just gives me the sales thing. I walk in and he was structured. Okay, this guy's for real. He tells me about this group he has where he's bringing businesses together. You go for 4 hours once a month and sit in this room. It is structured. Somebody mediates the discussion and each person gets 10 minutes to talk. Then they get 2 minutes of feedback from every single person. I immediately fell in love with it because it was so green. I had no idea what to do, and I was literally the youngest person in the group. I sat in this group and it answered the questions that I had. It was just great being facilitated with people who gave me really good advice. I loved Chris during this whole thing. I would show up at his office just to talk about life. And looking back, I think I was definitely just burning time. But he was always open to listen to me. He really guided me. He saw what I was doing and he would give me advice. He'd say, "You have to start networking. We're going to get you in the chamber." Anytime I was stuck, I would go talk to him. And it was so helpful. I think he knew that if he put me in a setting, I would just do my thing. Chris said, "Go to this networking thing." My response was, "What's the Chamber of Commerce?" I showed up in this room and I'm this young dude who's not wearing a suit and everyone's wearing a suit. And he met me there and he says, "Okay, this is what you're going to do." I looked at the room and it became a challenge. I'm going to have everyone in here know my name. That's my goal. 2 months later, people started thanking Mike Doyle because Chris also taught me how to get referrals and how to structure a sales meeting. I can't give him all the credit, but he was literally the star, teaching me what business was, and he just pointed me in that direction. As in any mentorship, like in life, you start in one place and then you outgrow it. But you get as much as you need and then you go to the next thing and the next thing. Since Chris, I've had many, many, many coaches because I saw how necessary it was in the very beginning. Anytime that I feel like I'm stuck, I'm going to hire someone who's going to help me with this one thing. The group experience, working with the peer advisory group, was like a therapy session because working for yourself is very lonely. The growth of your company just becomes your own mind saying, "How far do you want to take this?" I have more of a life coach now because the business is doing well. I haven't had a business coach in a long time just because I got a little burned out with the hustle. With the group, I loved it because I would go there for a therapy session and I would just blurt out, "Here's why I'm stressed out. Here's where I'm stuck." I remember David Durr gave me some advice. To this day, I still love it. I asked, "How do you take an animation and make it physical as a gift to somebody new?" He said, "Why don't you just make prints of the screen capture and then send them to him in a frame? Because then it's sitting on their desk. They're going to love it because it's a physical thing." No one does that nowadays. I should really get back into this because I did it for a while. They would leave it on their desk. When people come in the room, they'd be like, "Oh, what's that?" It was something I never would have thought of. You get to pick people's brains around you. I also got bookkeeping advice from people. If I needed to meet someone, someone in the group happened to actually know someone. I needed an animator at the time to take on projects. I said that out loud, and this woman said, "Oh, my son's looking. He just graduated." To this day, I hire him for freelance jobs. I never would have known how to structure a team like that. Going through the meetings, they told me how I can freelance with somebody where you don't have a salary. I didn't even know this existed, even though I was doing it myself. I can hire other people too. I just learned the minute structures of business. So many people out there give you this broad sales pitch. They make it look sexy. The story is sexy, but the day you're doing it, there's nothing sexy about it because you're wondering, what do I do today to grow this business? How do we get new clients? How do I sell? How do I manage my team? How do I project manage? You don't know what to do. So having people around you that had that experience can share it. It just opens your eyes because you have done it, you had the experience, and I'm going to take from it whatever is going to matter to me. I was so unstructured, and now look where it took me. I've had the company for 11 years. I started off scrambled, narrowed it down to video, then narrowed it down to animation. I brought it to the group and I said, I had an aha moment. I'm going to do just explainer videos. It was funny because in the group of 8, they all said, we have no idea what this is. I said, trust me, this is going to work because it's one product based on built to sell. It said do something very simple because if you could say no way more than yes to projects, then that's just going to make your life a lot easier. So I just made a product that is airtight. My first explainer video was with Chris. He explained what his group was and I just recorded him. Then I designed and animated the video. He used it for years. Then he used it in his sales pitch to get people to come into his groups. He would lead with it. I knew I was definitely onto something. Sometimes I think I should get back into a group like that because it is very helpful. I put too much pressure on myself for a really long time about making my company have a purpose. Once I let go of that, I was like, I don't need to be this $1 million machine to go and drop off food at a local food bank. Why don't I do the smallest thing possible to get that aspect and help my community? I really let go of that and I said, I just want this company to make a ton of money, and that's going to allow me to help my community. I think I like having the business just be a business. I've been working by myself now for 17 years. Today I had this meeting and I have another project that will take an hour, and then after that, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. I built this life based on I'm not going to kill myself over money. I have projects where they're now in the background working, and a freelancer just emailed me this morning with our latest storyboard. I'm going to send it to a client, and I'm good until Monday. If I look back at what mistakes I made that I learned from, and other people could also learn from, first it was bookkeeping and taxes. I thought I'd just do it differently than anyone else. But no, you have to follow the rules. Taxes and bookkeeping were a big thing with me, how to keep that organized. What else? Trying too hard to attach a purpose to my business was a big mistake that put stress on me. I moved down to North Carolina 6 years ago, and I went through a lot of life stuff. When you're on your own, you're trying to balance life and business, and you can't turn either of them off. They bleed into each other. Just make as much money as you can because that really alleviates stress, and then you have free time to do good things. Now I can separate life and business, but it took me a very long time. How did I do it? I just stopped caring so much. I stopped believing all the crap that's been fed to me. All these books and podcasts and these idiots who are in their 20s telling you they're making millions and hundreds of millions. Is this like a fantasy they're living in? You put stress on yourself. I just started asking myself, what do I want? I don't need to prove anything to anybody else. I think in the beginning I tried to play the game and tried to make it for everyone else. When you're working for yourself, the number one rule is you're not doing this for anybody else but yourself. When you lose that, you lose your own voice. I show up super laid back and kind of aggressive at times, but also tongue in cheek. But then when I get down to a project, I show up, I make deadlines, and I stress about it. That's the only stress that I allow myself. When I'm on a deadline, I'm head down, plugged in, doing my thing. I go on LinkedIn, and I think it's the greatest social network ever. Everyone's so afraid to say anything. Say your opinions. If I'm paying a business coach, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be very teachable. But if someone's giving me unsolicited advice, get out of my way. I'm a very open book, so I don't care about sharing my personal life. I was married, and I was helping her start the CrossFit business. The person I was with ended up leaving for her business partner. I'm working for myself. I'm basically the only support that this little family had. So there's the pressure of getting jobs because I'm the sole earner and she's starting a business that I helped fund. What you don't realize in business is that life is still going to happen and it can completely derail you. My dad suddenly passed away, and then 3 months later, my wife at the time left me. That was the biggest 1-2 punch that can literally just destroy you, and you still have to run a business. You're in the weirdest headspace. I'm 2 or 3 years into starting this LLC, and I'm trying to sell. I'm trying to market. I'm losing my shit as much as possible. I ended up selling everything. I have a laptop. I work for myself. I can do this from anywhere, so I sold everything and started traveling. I stumbled upon Raleigh, North Carolina in my travels. Kept traveling, got back to New Jersey, and realized I was just over New Jersey. Living there for 35 years, I'm sick of the snow, I'm sick of New Jersey. Nothing but love for Jersey, but it wasn't for me anymore. Then I came back to Raleigh. It was cool because it was a fresh start. I've been here for 6 years. It's very tech oriented with a huge startup scene, and it's just exploding now with real estate, which is crazy. That's what got me here.
I always got to play that music. Um, so Mike
It's
Doyle, is that your
so
first time hearing that?
yeah, that's
What'd
so
you
funny.
what'd you think? What'd you think hearing it?
It's weird when someone else is telling. Like I've told that story so many times just on my own. I've never had someone else saying what I said. It's interesting. It's like, oh, I was like, I felt like I was listening. Literally, I was listening to a book, and I was, but about a section about me.
But do you feel a sense of pride and proudness, or did you like feel like that wasn't quite right?
No, that was it was definitely right. I feel like it like captured for me exactly what happens, and yeah, I don't know. It was interesting to listen to it. I don't know. It's it's cool to just reminisce about that entire time because I mean the moment like there's so much stuff that happened between then and present day that you know it's still very much in the forefront of my mind. It's very you know I don't dwell in it, but it's still like that part of my life. It's still very connected to the day to
So
day.
view it as your foundation, right? That's where you started. Those are your grassroots. Tell us where you evolved to, personally, professionally. What's going on with you?
I'd say personally, I became more in tune with who I am. So if something like back then, I would be a little bit more of a trigger. If something was going wrong, I'd start blaming everyone else. But then in the last 4 or 5 years, I started just not internalizing, but I started looking back at myself and be like, all right, what am I bringing to the table? Like, where did I not do this correctly, or you know, where am I at fault with this? So that's one thing I've learned from then. As far as business, I mean, it's exactly right. I used to put too much pressure on like you have to make this like a Tom's shoes, or you have to make wells in other countries to get people water based on your business. And like eventually like companies do that, but for me by myself, it was literally I live in this town. How can I just make money to support myself and just make it that take out all this magic? And, you know, I still have fun with it, but I mean, I'm just like take the pressure off, and then how can I go around locally and just support local? And then I started to do that, and it only takes like $20 here, $30 here. A couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, I did a drive for women in the area that they need supplies like uh, kind of like bathroom supplies, I guess you could say. And so I just reached out to someone. I was like, okay, well, how can I just do this? How can I just take the power that I have and just to organize something and just throw that together, and did it. We raised like so much product for these women and girls that was just, oh, I don't have to make $100 million or $1 million to do this. I can go do this now. So that was like a huge thing I learned.
That's great. So are you still into CrossFit and you're still playing music or any of that kind of stuff?
No CrossFit. I started working with a personal trainer and just started just doing weights, which I like way better. I mean, still, I liked CrossFit. It wasn't really working for me. I felt like my body was too stressed out.
Yep.
I actually did this the thing called, I don't know if I can say this on here, but you can believe it. It's called Fuck Up Nights down in Raleigh. And you get up on stage, you get 8 minutes to tell your story. So I told that story. And people at the end, there's a Q&A, and they're like, are you still doing CrossFit? It's like, no. I was like, it's not about the relationship ending due to it. It was just my body is just not into it. Are you still doing it?
No. And I've got
Yeah.
a lot of wear and tear from it.
Yeah. My shoulder is pretty screwed up from it. So
So I've got two torn labrums in my hips, and I've got a shoulder thing from something else, but from playing hockey. But I went vegan some years ago, and it kind of fixed everything, shockingly.
mm.
but this isn't about me, it's about you. But so you're still working out though. You're still doing something for yourself physically.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
I,
music
I
thing, do you still play?
last year, 2022, my old band got asked to play a show at Starland to open up for a sold out show, and we played in front of 2,500 people, which was crazy. That was the first time we ever did that. Um, my only connection to music is just this punk rock podcast that I do about it was started out as the late 90s Jersey scene. And then I kind of opened the door to invite other bands and producers and labels in to talk about their experience because they were the ones who influenced us. And it's doing pretty well. It's almost got closing in on about 300,000 downloads. And
Wow.
it's been going on for 6 years.
Okay, good for you. And you
Yeah.
said you moved to Jersey from California, and I don't know if you know it. Now I'm in California, so I did the reverse kind of with New York in between, or back to New
Yeah.
York and then here. Where in California were you?
When I first moved there, I was in Canoga Park in the Valley for about a year. Then I moved to Tarzana, and then I moved to San Diego for 6 months. And that's where, when I was in San Diego, excuse me, no, when I was in LA, I was working at P.F. Chang's, and this guy I was working with had a t-shirt company, or he had a t-shirt on, and I asked him where he got it from. He said he made it, and that was the whole starting point of graphic design for me. It's like, oh wait, you can make your own stuff. And then I did that, moved to San Diego, was looking for schools around there, and my mom called me one day, kind of like that universe thing where I was looking for it. My mom calls me and she's like, your stepdad had a dream of the night that you moved back home and you went to school. And I was like, interesting. I was literally started thinking about this week. And she was like, just come home. So I did that, and that started me on the whole graphic design
Where in San
animation journey.
Diego?
I was in downtown. I was right in the flight path. It was
All right.
on Second and Hawthorne, I think was the
I'm in Point
address.
Loma, just so you know.
Oh, nice. I love it
Yeah.
down there. It's probably very expensive now, but
But yeah, I'm near OB where all the fun stuff happens.
you would be an OB.
I just love it here. David Quick, any questions? What did you resonate with? What did you identify with Mike's story?
Two things. When he just started the business ad hoc, he made the assumption that the customers were going to come to him. Um, I thought the same thing. I started my business, and just customers would come, and then they didn't come. So I have to be a salesman too. So that's one thing. And the other thing was ultimately, I mean, the business not having a purpose, but I still think it still needs a vision of where it needs to go. But ultimately, this is just to make money. So I'm a CS, so there is some stress if the financial situation is unstable. So having it, we're gonna make it profitable, so that money comes in, would reduce my stress. So that's a big part of what resonated with me.
Yeah, having money come in, I didn't realize it. 2020 is where it really popped off for me. There was a bunch of years where it was a struggle, and then it was just job after job after job. And I just, one of my really good friends said to me years ago, she said, I know I'll be financially set when I can put all my bills on auto pay. And I started to do that with some, and I was like, wow, this feels so good to just have enough coming in that, it's not like millions or anything like that, but it's just enough to where it does really alleviate the stress. Where when people are like, oh, money's not everything, I'm like, get the hell out of here. You're so full of shit. It helps.
So as I was listening to your story, Mikey, actually, and David sitting here, there's a lot that you guys have in common. That one, you're both open to being vulnerable and sharing what's really going on. Two, you're both coachable and you implement what you hear and you stick with things, right? And you both came through chamber experiences, and kind of mastered that part and understand networking. So it was interesting to have the two of you here because that's not always the case. But you've both been a pleasure to work with because when you hear a suggestion, you implement it, right? And whether it works or not, you'll give it a shot. And that's really refreshing. And I think that's part of who we look for in a member is, I had to turn two people away this week because they really just wanted to be blowhards and come to our meeting to tell us how smart they are. And it's like, that's not why we're here. That's not what this is about. This is about coming and saying, what do I do? How do I do this? What should I do next? Um, So, and it's funny, I have your plaque on my wall. So
You still have that?
I still have that. Now I had
I
to
love
cover
that.
the name and put on the bus over it and all of that. And I want to make another one with you. And so we should have that talk because
Yeah.
and maybe we can just change, we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think of it all the time. And
It's
that
still
vid
one of my favorite videos. It's so effective and it's just so simple that I mean, just doing that was so much fun. And I can look at it now and it still works.
yeah, and you know it went viral, right? It's in multiple languages now. You go to anybody on that company's franchisees LinkedIn groups, and that video's on there.
Really?
Yeah, and I got scolded for doing it, but
Yeah,
that's
I
a
remember.
whole,
Yeah, that was a whole different story. That was a weird moment
yeah.
when that went down.
But but yeah, videos work. Animation works also because you know, I think when you do a video, you worry about being perfect and it gets dated easily. You know, the shirt you're wearing or the background or whatever it might be, but there's something about animation that makes it timeless,
Yeah.
right? And you can just express stories differently and people are more focused on the message than the person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I lead with that with sales calls. I'm just like, do you want this thing to be evergreen? I mean, this thing's going to be evergreen, and just that's why I have them hammer down the message in the scripts because I'm like, you can use this. I mean, Vince Finaldi with Teledata, or Telecloud now. I did their video in 2013. And they're still using it. That's over 10 years.
And
Like, still
you've
using it.
never done like those hand drawing video things, have
You
you?
know, I typically hate those. And I had a client reach out to me in December and said, we're working with Lenovo to do these hand drawn things. They want 6 videos. Do you want to do it? I was just like, sure. And I'm right now, my designers is designing them. So I'll have 6 videos that to pump out in like 2.5, 2 weeks in the next couple of weeks. Um, but it is a lucrative gig. And I was like, yes, I will say yes for that.
All right.
So I might start doing them.
How many employees do you have now?
0, just freelancer.
All right, and you're still using some of the guys that you were using when you were back up in Jersey?
Same guy, the same designer. He's still working with me. And my animator, he went on to work with Comedy Central or Cartoon Network and Comedy Central, something like that. I could just tell his talent back then. And then my copywriter, they were always freelance. My copywriter, she's got a full-time job for the last 8 years, I think. And yeah, I just keep it lean, man.
What's your turnaround time on videos?
I created 3 tiers. The premium one takes 4 to 6 weeks. Basic takes 3 to 4, and Scrappy is this new one I'm doing. It's like 2 to 3 because it's just very, very, very simple.
And what are the price points on those, if you don't mind sharing, because you never know what could come of it.
It's kind of like a mix. It could be as low as 2,000. It could be as high. It depends on the client. Sometimes you talk to one who's got more money. I mean, I've had projects where you can get like $9,000, $12,000.
All right, so you're between 2,000 and 12,000, somewhere in there. And how long are these videos typically?
69 seconds.
69 seconds is all you said?
60 to 90 seconds.
60 to 90 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And so what's next for Mike Doyle? Where are you going with all of this?
I don't really know. I'm just kind of just figuring that out. Still don't have this, like, I don't know. I don't like to have this hard direction. It just, I'm not saying like I'm kind of floating, but I don't know. I'm just trying to add more things and to figure out like where I want to go. But I mean, this thing's working. I'm just trying to add other parts to it, like on top of it, to see where growth is. I think the AI thing is a little weird for me.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye out for because I see the videos that they're doing and it's a little weird, but it looks like they're better for creating stock video than a regular
Did you see
video.
the one we released this week
No.
on our trade show? Yeah, it's I'll share it with you after this, but it's interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
But okay.
Weird.
So if somebody wanted to find you, what's your website?
Drive80.com, drive80.com. That's the best place. You can get me on LinkedIn. It's at _Mike Doyle, or just look up Mike Doyle and you'll see me with just an animator of these two little comic guys on my shoulders. Or you can email me at mike@drive80.com. And it's pretty much keep it simple.
All right.
No Twitter, no Instagram. I think there's certain platforms that businesses don't need to be on because it just doesn't work.
And no
So I stay
Facebook
with
either?
this. No, I mean, I have a Facebook page. I just don't post there because if you're on Facebook, I think that's more consumer based. LinkedIn is B2B. And I don't understand why creatives don't post on there more because it's everything you do is visual. Like put it on there. Even if you have like stats, just put I don't know, just put as much visual on possible and people will be like, oh, we have a budget. I've gotten so many projects because of that. And so many creators are like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, stop overthinking it, man. Just post as much as possible.
Yeah. So if you were going to talk to a younger Mike Doyle going into business, what would you tell him?
I would say scrap all the purpose stuff. I mean, I think you're right. Like you should have a vision. I think like David's right about that. It's there should be a vision. I think majority of businesses where they want to go. If I'm listening to a podcast and they're talking about they had this vision and they went in this direction, I'm always in awe of that, and it's inspiring. Or not inspiring. It's just interesting to hear. I think that really works just for me personally. Tell myself that I'd be like, just stop stressing out. Like, don't take it so seriously.
And it's funny, my best friend here is a doctor, and I was with him at music last night, and yeah, he knew he was always going to be a doctor, right? His dad was a doctor, and doctors are like that. They know what they're going to be from when they're kids, but entrepreneurs aren't like that, right? We kind
Yeah.
of fall into these things, and then we mold it to our vision and our liking, and we build towards that.
Well,
Yeah,
we also don't know it exists. When you're a kid, you don't know what entrepreneurship is. I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I didn't have a title for it. I think one thing I would tell myself is I got a lot of advice from people when I started, and I took it because they were 10 to 20 years older than me. And these are people that I was not asking them for their advice. They'd kind of come in and give me unsolicited advice, like, you shouldn't say this or you should do this. And I would tell myself to just dismiss that because they didn't understand what I was doing. And I think like if you think, I don't know, some people think that the older they are, the more wiser they are. And it's like, no, they weren't. They were just kind of talking to talk, and it kind of held me back, I think.
It's interesting. You're on the fringe of the marketing world, right? So, and you're a creative type. And I think that marketing is one of the few industries that gets younger, not older.
Yeah.
And, you talk to some people, they're just out of touch. They don't understand what works.
Yeah, I think their intentions are good, but I think I don't know, just the way it was presented back then. I remember a couple conversations I had, and I think that's what I mean. I think it did help me because it made me get my own voice, because I think I'm driven by getting pissed off, and then I act on that in a very, back in the day, I'd be more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but I'd be like, I kind of feel the fire. And I see that now, and I'm like, all right, like, how do I take this and build from it? And I think that's what led me down this path to be like, all right, let me just, now I'm really going to have a hard stop with listening to people because it was really starting to get annoying.
Yep. Yeah, you've always beat, what's the term? You beat your own drum, but
Yeah.
you've made it work, and stress works for you, and stress works for me too. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur is that we have different motivators than employees have.
Yeah.
Um,
You have to find the one that it's like that fuel. I think it's a mix of, it's kind of nice to feel a little pissed off once in a while because it does shake you up and it opens up some new ideas. But that be the driving force for the whole way, that's not the good thing.
well, I think more of the answer is to find out how to use the energy from it,
Yeah.
right? The I'll show you mentality is good for us, I think.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It to the point where it doesn't burn you up though. Cause I used to have that and it really stressed me out too much. And I had to really let go of that. But
well,
the initial spark is like, yeah, 100%.
and we're burn your ships kind of people, right? We're all in. Once we're in, we're in. That's it. There's no going back.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to go get a job.
Yeah.
It's we don't do well with bosses. It
No,
just,
very unemployable, as I
yes,
think you told me.
yes. David Quick, anything else for Mike?
And that's also bring up a good point. As I mean, I've had jobs in the past, and I just realized I really didn't like having a boss working at a job, 9 to 5 or whatever the hours were, and just got tired of it. I just wanted to just be free and just be flexibility and just to do what I want. That's a big part of it. I mean, I can't go back. I can't go back to having a job ever.
I
Right.
think I heard I was listening to some podcasts and they asked the guy, "Do you think everyone could be an entrepreneur?" And I thought a couple weeks ago really clicked in with me that I don't think that's possible. I think it's almost like saying anyone could be a long distance runner or something in the Olympics, or like whatever, like some Olympic sport, or climb Mount Everest, whatever it is. I think there's a certain group of us that can do this. So I think it's a very certain demographic that we can handle this more than the other people that are the old bosses who are sucky.
Yeah, I wrote in my book, there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being entrepreneurial. I go to this networking group and there's guys from recruiting for like broker types, and they're like, oh, you'll be an entrepreneur, you'll be your own boss. I'm thinking, no, you won't. That's not what an entrepreneur is when you're giving them an office and a salary. That's entrepreneurial, but it's not. If you don't get the risk, take the risk, you don't get it.
Yeah, if you don't have a solid paycheck.
Yeah, I noticed the difference between people that are working in a job and people that actually own their own businesses. As I interact with people in my various networking, I can tell the difference. It's a subtle difference between people that actually own their own business, run their business, and people that are actually working for somebody else.
Yeah.
You can really tell the difference.
Yep. It's a different mindset. One of the barometers is that I always look at, and I don't know about you guys, but I look forward to Mondays. I can't wait to get back in the saddle, where the employee looks forward to Friday. They can't wait to stop.
Yeah, they'll say the Happy Friday, like not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't turn off up here ever.
Anyway, all right, Mike, thank you so much. And we'll let you know the next time your story comes around. Sorry we didn't have more people here, but this worked out just
Okay.
fine, in my opinion. So let me stop the recording.